Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first poet, and it's no small achievement on Jean's part that I thought until quite recently that she was a Clare native. I mean, I've been living here, surfing here for over a decade now, and I still feel like a veritable blowing at the best of times. But that really is testament to Jean and the connection that she makes with the place she calls home. She is presently living in Oslo, Norway, and I'm sure that it's no different there. Her debut collection, Other Places, published by Salmon Poetry, reinforces this sense of belonging, be it Dublin, Clare, Oslo, or even the Pine Ridge Native American, a reservation in South Dakota. Jean studied Irish folklore and English literature in UCD Dublin and has been shortlisted twice in 2010 and 2011 for Galway's Over the Edge New Writer of the Year, and in 2012 was shortlisted for the Patrick Kavanagh Poetry Award, and has just very recently been shortlisted for the Strong Shine Award. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jean Kavanagh.
I'd like to thank Paul for contacting me on Facebook and inviting me here. Any excuse to come home. As he said, I grew up in Dublin. I moved here in 1999, and I moved away about 2.5 years ago, and I live in Oslo now. I also do volunteer on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. So my book is 4 sections about the 4 places that I consider home. But I'm going to start with a new one. This is kind of a rant about the draconian alcohol laws in Norway. But on a wider scale, it's kind of, I think it's about the culture of terror that we've been living in since 9/11 and how our government controls us through fear. So it's called The Terrorists Have Won. This town has gone septic. Rules have crept in. No place for leeway or loophole. The paranoid are burning their diaries, lawyering up for worst case scenario. Afraid of the evidence on grainy footage that government officials shall monitor. Telling us now it's for our own good, and won't somebody think of the children? The fun police are on patrol. Their maps marked in red of every last stronghold in hidden corners where the party might still be going on. Their special agents send in the SWAT teams. Tell grown-ups it's time you were in bed. Chastised, curtailed, counted in the name of progress and computerization. We are permutized, homogenized, systemized. Though nothing bad has happened yet, but oh, the threat that it might. A people controlled by feeding their fear. As we walk home at night before curfew, on the streets of terror, no one sees the sunrise anymore. Sorry, yeah, that's very better. This poem is about the Hinch, called Latinish. Here on this western rock, a half-island where history began. New friends have families in famine graves, and surnames sewn into the soil. The scars of old injustices are still visible on the face of towns. Everything is named and placed, and I envy their belonging. For I am recent, an emotional refugee, where the arms of a bay drew me in and held me. All this sea and sky opened me out to possibilities, like that night after the bonfire. Standing on the beach, I saw the stars bend down to meet the shore. The highest point of the Hinch is Coco Clonard. Every year the Tooheys used to have a bonfire there on St. John's Eve, and it occurred to me that it's probably the spot where people were doing that on the summer solstice 2,000 years ago. So I wrote this poem for that. It's called Solstice. The calendar has written over its seasons once again. The longest day a comma in the disappearing sentence of a year. Within its folds, the straight lines of human history become a drawstring, looped, pulled together, a purse to measure the weight of celebrations, a toll burning, sparked back and forth, half-shadowed souls around these ancient flickers, mocking time beneath the slow spin of stars, light sending out to darkness like fire upon the hills. when they get drunk in Norway, they don't sing, and I have a real problem with this. So I'm always belting out the parting glass or something. So the joke is when people ask me why I moved to Norway, I said because I was the worst singer in my village. So this is called From the Corner. Intimate, the music in her mouth, a ball on the roll of her tongue. Dissolving threads of chorus fill the air like water. Ancient notes lilt back and forth through time. Eyes closed against her gods, invoking old tunes and spirits of singers, spilling out a vessel filled. Transformed from woman, smiling shy, tonight she crushes hearts with song. I see Eilish Gwynn is here. Her husband was my professor in Irish folklore, and even though that was 20-something years ago, I still kind of feel there's a part of me that considers myself a folklorist. I wrote this poem for Dahio Hogan, who used to tell us this very funny story, and I've told the story so many times, I said I may as well make it a poem in magic. I did a degree in Irish folklore. In exams, we were asked about fairy abduction criteria, regional thatching methods, migratory legends, and children's skipping songs. Field trips involved sitting in pubs with microphones and pints, driving up Boreens to cottages in far-flung townlands to visit local Shanachie, mentally making note that the story being told was number C31.1.2 in the Arna Thompson catalogue of folktales. We knew the first Cinderella was in 8th century China, the leprechaun a version of a European treasure guardian. Place names gave clues to archaeological sites, and Ogham is based on the Latin alphabet. At some point, it occurred to the academics to ask whether the tellers believed their own stories. They set up a symposium of belief, came from all over the world to debate this side issue of their collected archives. We students too were told a tale. Our lecturer recounted asking one of his storytellers, "Do you believe in the fairies?" The man crossed himself. "Jesus, Mary and Joseph, no." A pause, a glance over the shoulder. Leaning in, he whispered, "But they're there all the same." I live in Oslo, and I used to work on the edge of a park called Bjørkelunden, which translates as birch grove. And there's these beautiful birch trees there, which I kind of wonder are older than the buildings around them. So this one's called Bjørkelunden. All summer, the birch trees and myself have been having conversations. Sometimes the copper-green church spire joins in. "There is hope," he usually says, pointing to the sky. I can never quite remember later what we talked about. Daydreams mostly, often of the weather. The trees are kind. Sometimes they dance on purpose because they know I miss the wind. We understand each other perfectly. So lately they have seemed confused that bits of me aren't turning gold and falling off. They are, I reassure them. But with humans, it happens on the inside.